Today we're going to talk about something that most of us never really think about, and that's the idea that not all reading is the same. And because of that, well, we shouldn't approach all of our reading in the same way. So let's dive in. Have you ever had that feeling, you spend maybe an hour reading a chapter for class, you get all the way to the bottom of the page, and then you realize you have absolutely no idea what you just read. You might even reread it, but that understanding, it just isn't sticking. It's a really common and frustrating experience. So I want to start by making something really clear. If that frustration sounds familiar to you, it is not a problem with your ability to read. The issue is likely with the system, or the method that you're using. See, most of us are taught to read, but not how to read for different purposes. So the common approach ends up being this one-size-fits-all method, where we read everything at about the same speed and with the same amount of effort. A strategic approach, though, means you adapt your style to the specific task at hand. And this is the core idea for our lesson today. Strategic reading is simply the skill of matching your reading technique to the task you need to accomplish. It's all about working smarter, not just trying to force it by working harder. So how do we actually do that? Well, we can start by understanding that there are really three main types of reading you'll do for school. Let's break them down one by one. First up is what we call learning reading. You can think of this as high-load reading. It's for when you're encountering brand new concepts or really complex ideas for the very first time. This is when your brain is doing the heavy lifting of building a new understanding from scratch. And because this is such high-load work, it naturally requires a slower pace and deep, uninterrupted focus. This is active thinking time. It's the kind of reading you do with a dense chapter in a science textbook or a really complex article that's explaining a new theory.
The second type is reinforcement reading, and this is more of a medium-load task. Here, you're not learning something for the first time. Instead, you're reviewing material you've already seen, and the whole goal is to strengthen the understanding you already have.
Now, this type of reading can be done much more efficiently than learning reading, but it does still require your attention to detail. Think about when you're going over your class notes before a quiz, or maybe rereading a familiar topic to prepare for a discussion. You already have the foundation, and now you're just making it stronger.
And finally, our third type is scanning. This is very low-load reading. The goal here isn't to understand everything on the page, but to find one specific piece of information as quickly as you can.
This should feel fast. Think of it like a search mission for your eyes. You're just looking for a key term, a specific date, or the answer to a question in your homework. You're actually training your brain to ignore everything else on the page to find exactly what you need.
Okay, so now that we know the three types, let's talk about where things often go wrong. The problem for many students isn't the reading itself. It's the mismatch between the type of reading they need to do and the strategy they're using to do it.
And this table really illustrates the problem perfectly. For example, if you try to use a scanning strategy, like speed reading, on a complex new chapter that requires learning, well, the result is going to be low comprehension and a lot of frustration. On the other hand, if you use a slow, deep reading strategy for something simple, like following directions, you're just wasting valuable time and mental energy.
Okay, let's make this practical. Go ahead and get your workbook ready. I want you to apply these ideas by thinking about one of your classes right now, maybe even the one you find the most challenging.
In your workbook, you'll see a question asking you to think about that class. Which type of reading do you do most often? Is it mostly learning, where you're tackling new ideas? Is it reinforcement, where you're reviewing? Or is it scanning for specific facts? Go ahead and pause here and circle the answer that feels most accurate for that class. All right, now for the next step. For the type of reading you just circled, what strategy do you actually use most of the time? Do you tend to read it slowly and carefully? Do you skim it really quickly? Maybe you take notes as you go. Be honest with yourself about what your current habit is.
Let's pause again so you have a moment to write down your current strategy. And finally, here's the most important question. Look at the strategy you just wrote down. Based on what we've just discussed, is it the right one for the task? If the reading is high-load learning, is your strategy slow and focused? If it's low-load scanning, is your strategy fast and efficient? This is your chance to spot that mismatch for yourself.
So, the crucial takeaway today is this. Better reading isn't about trying harder. It's about having a better system. It's about consciously matching the right strategy to the right task.
Now is a great time to reflect on what you've discovered. So go ahead and finish up the Lesson 12.1 page in your workbook.
Thinking through this mismatch is the very first step to building a better system.
And next time, we're going to build directly on this foundation. We'll explore exactly how to make your reading more active so your brain actually processes and, more importantly, remembers what you've read. I'll see you then.
And